All right, it's recording, and we're so grateful for everyone that's on and everyone that will be attending. And this is the third and final session in our three-part series on internalizing joy. And we wanted to do this because this is Adar. This is the month of joy. This is the most joyous month for the Jewish people. It's interesting. We have the holiday of joy, which is Sukkot, which is by the high holidays. But then we have the month of joy, and that's Adar. And because it's a leap year, as you know, as we've said each time, we have 60 days of joy, and 60 nullifies any negativity. So we are nullifying our negativity with joy. So this is our mantra for these 60 days. Today is day 20 of the first month. We have 40 more days to be really focused on joy. And that's why we are doing this. This is, again, the third part of our three-part series on internalizing joy. What we're up to today, we'd like to go through some more ideas and try to focus on some practical tips to translate this positivity that we've been discussing for the last 2 weeks into practical. So what I'm going to go through today is tips based on what we've said before. And I have about 10 ideas here. Again, some of them are reviewing things I said before and just really focusing on the practical bottom line. Some might be new. And these are all like, okay, I want to walk away with full pockets. I want to walk away with a lot of arsenal on how to lead, at least for the next 40 days, a really joyous life. And of course, I would like to continue it after these 40 days. All right. So number one, not surprising, because you know this is something I so believe in, is creating your gratitude list. We discussed it, but I'm putting it as my number one because I think it is so important. And maybe during Adar, try to do it twice a day for the next 40 days. And each time, demand from yourself 5 things you're going to write down. I'd like you to start off in the morning with it because that's a great way to start your day. That's a great focal for your day is, like we said, I am so blessed. Remember, we did that exercise 2 times ago. Come up with 5 things and 5 more things and 5 more things. We had no problems. We have so many blessings in our life. So if you start off in the morning giving God gratitude for 5 things, it already focuses your day. And then at night, when you're reflecting before you go to sleep, again, it's very good. Whatever you put in your brain before you go to sleep, that's what your mind churns all night long. So we want to churn positive. Again, writing, again, coming up with 5 things, ideally very specific things. They could be very small, but very specific things to thank God for from your blessed day. And when you're feeling anxious, when you're feeling stressed, when you're feeling worried, when you're feeling blah, sometimes it's nothing specific. We just feel blah. I'd like you to reread what you write. And it's also good to say it out loud. It's good to hear it. It's good to put it out in the world, in the atmosphere of your home, that your home should be a home of positivity. Your home should be a home of gratitude. Your home should be a home of knowing we're blessed. You could share with your husband. You could share some, ask him to contribute some if you feel safe to do so, if you feel that it's appropriate, if it works. But you really want to create an atmosphere in your house of like, we have such blessed lives. We are so happy. We are so joyous in serving God, in our relationship with God and in our life. This is not like fantasy. This is very practical. This works. And I know for myself, because I keep thinking these thoughts all the time, especially this month, but I lately been thinking them a lot. It's like such a natural go-to. And I'm just like, come back to that space. I'm so blessed. Doesn't mean my life is perfect as I understand the word perfect. I think challenges are part of perfection. So I have my share, but it doesn't take away from my feeling that I have such a blessed life. I have such a good life and to be happy in my life. And that's our goal. So that's the first thing. The second idea, which I don't think we mentioned before, but I think also is a very practical tip to help you feeling joy and positivity in your life, is Well, actually, I'm sorry, we did mention this because Orly opened up this whole conversation. We had actually this very long conversation about this. I meant to put it here, and then Orly discussed it 2 classes ago. And I said, yes, I'm going to say that also, just quite later now. But I thought I was very grateful when she said it because it's very, very true. And it helps us have a joyous perspective, looking at our setbacks and understanding they are springboards. If you remember Orly's sharing of her losing her job with a lot of pain, with a lot of grief, with a lot of loss, a job she had invested many years in, and actually finding something that was so much better and helped her grow and give and so many perks. A setback is a springboard. Why are we talking about it? Well, why did Orly say it? It's a very natural thing to say in a conversation on joy, because when we're trying to be joyous and life is life, we have things that challenge us. We have things like, I want to be joyous, but I'm going through this. How can I be joyous? And I have this challenge at work. I have this challenge in my marriage. I have this challenge with my health. I might be blessed and have all three. I have this challenge with my neighbor, with my family. I have this challenge with myself. None of us are challenge free. So we want to be joyous and we can think of the blessings in our life, but we can get stymied by the challenges. And that's why this is a very important number 2, right after number 1 of a daily focus on the blessings and gratitude, is frequent training my brain. The more you think something, the more you train your brain to think along those lines. That's how our brains work, according to Torah and according to neurology today. The more we think something, the more that's the road our brain goes. So we want to train our brain that setbacks are springboards. The challenges help me achieve more and open up new vistas and created growth. So we discussed it 2 classes ago, but just for a second, I think it's good to think about it again, because I think it's so important. In other words, I think number 1 is so important because otherwise we don't even have a baseline of joy. But I think once we get our baseline of joy, which is number 1, we need number 2 to not get thrown by challenges. Do I have a good life? Yes. Do I have a blessed life? Yes. Am I generally happy? I hope so. And do I have challenges? For sure. That doesn't take away from any of that. And we have to really train ourselves to understand it doesn't take away from any of that, because challenges are part of the process, part of the growth, part of the adventure, part of the excitement, part of what's stimulating me to become a person I would never otherwise be. So if we could take that second again to think of any time when I've experienced a setback, when I've experienced a challenge, when I've experienced a disappointment, when I've experienced a loss of something. It could be a relationship, it could be something in work, it could be on any level. And I actually saw, maybe not right away, but I saw that it actually helped me. Maybe it helped me because I got a better job, or I had a deeper appreciation for my family because of the health situation, or deeper appreciation for people because of the challenge in that relationship, or growth in myself because of what I went through. And I became a better person, a more sensitized person, a more giving person, a more appreciative of life person. So try to think of a time where you can think of a setback, a disappointment, a challenge, and it really was a catalyst for something good for you. And when you have something in mind, you can raise your hand. Think of a time when you went through a challenge and you gained from it. You gained as a person, you gained in your life, you gained in your relationships, you gained in your career, gains in your health. Well, I got Manucha's hand raised and I came up with something right away. Oh, now I got Bella's. Good. I know Rivka's driving. Okay. It's a good exercise to demand from yourself. It's good to, especially if you're going through a challenge, to stop and say, wait, let me look at my own history. I don't need to rely on anyone else's. I want to demand for myself to remember 3 times when I went through challenges and they're great success stories. My life is so much better because of those challenges, of those hardships. I really grew. I really gained. I'm a better person. I have a better life. And again, like everything else, it's a muscle. It's a muscle in your mind. It's a way you frame your life. It's true. And I'm sure we all, I actually had a few I was thinking of. These 2 popped to my mind right away because I'm used to thinking along these lines. So it's easy for me to think. I'm sure we all have many such experiences, little experiences and very big experiences. It's not necessarily that the script is how you wanted it to turn out. But when you grew and changed or life improved because of it, that's going forward. So it's good to do this, especially when you're going through a challenge, to just not be so scared of challenges, not be so fearful, not feel so shut down by them, but to recognize this is part of God's loving process. This is part of God's love for me, that he creates in my life situations that help me grow, because I maybe otherwise wouldn't. Help me grow as a person, help me grow in my situations in life. Okay, that was number 2. Number 3, another thing which I think really helps to stay joyous and focused is to ask yourself, what are the foundational principles of my life? What are like my highest values? What are my morals? What are my ideals? What are my commitments, allegiances? And to write them down. And it's good to have that on paper. It's good to reread it. It's good to impress it in yourself. This is what's really important to me in my life. And this is what I want my life to be like, in sync, in connoissance with these ideals, with these values. Because sometimes in the day-to-day life, we sort of lose focus, and then life doesn't feel as meaningful. And therefore we lose the joy in our life because life doesn't feel very important. It's just like, yeah, the daily grind, wait for the weekend, then work starts again. You lose that whole specialness of life. But when you remember what are your deep commitments, what are your sacred values in life, it invests meaning in your life. And when you reread it, you like check, am I in sync with these values? Because if I am, I'm living a meaningful life. And that's very rich. That's very rewarding. That feels big. And if it's just small and like, 1 foot in front of the other, which sometimes is what it's going to be, because sometimes we're going through a lot of things. But if you're not, it's nice to have those broad values of what are the morals, what are the commitments of life. Like I would say for myself personally, I have a huge value in my life. I think it's pretty obvious that my life is to bring Mashiach. And that's a very big value of mine. And when I remember that, that focuses me, and that makes me sort of say, well, am I living like that? Did I live like that today? Am I living like that now? And that pushes me forward and gives momentum and meaning to my life, because my life is about something very significant. My life is about something very big, very meaningful. But when we aren't in touch with that, it sometimes feels very small and not meaningful. Chava?
Question. So we're talking about joy, right? And if we focus on our deep meaning and our deep morals and values and commitments, and some days pass by and we don't feel that this day was focused on commitment and morals and values, wouldn't be opposite from feeling joy? Could it put us down instead of feeling joyous?
It could. It definitely could. So if you know what your values are and you're day after day saying, nope, today was a washout, it's not going to bring you joy. I'm flipping it in the other direction. If you know what I said, 5, you could pick 1. And I think big. And you say, yes, I have a commitment to whatever, people, to relationships. And then you even can remind yourself of that, let's say in the morning, that I want this to be a meaningful day. I want this to be a day that counts. And then at night, when you check, because you remind yourself in the morning, and you're like, yeah, today I lived. You know, there's a saying in the prayers. This isn't a prayer we say after the Amidah, after the Shemona Esrei, in the morning prayers. And there's a line in there that when I'm focused is very meaningful to me. I'm not always focused, but when I'm focused, it really resonates. It says that we shouldn't live for nothingness, for emptiness, for vanity. And when I'm focused, it really strikes me very deeply. Like, I wouldn't want to live a life that I felt was all about nothingness. And I'd say, oh, that was a year of nothingness, or a lifetime of nothingness, or a month of nothingness. That doesn't make me feel good. That doesn't make me feel rich, enriched, wholesome. It makes me feel empty and So you're right. If it's just an occasional cross check and you feel, no, I'm not, it's not going to bring you joy. But if you use it as a tool, as like a focal point, so you start by understanding what your values are. And we all have obviously different things we're going to put on that list, especially if you're going to think of 5. And then you remind yourself, this is my vision of my life. And then you can, reminding yourself so you'll try to live in sync, then you ask yourself, hey, was today a meaningful day? Was today a day I lived? Maybe for some person, meaningful days is days they give to others. Was today a meaningful day? Was today a day when I gave to others? Was today a day when I was there for someone else? It was a meaningful day. I lived today. You know, maybe for some person, their high commitment is a relationship with their spouse or their children. So when you remind it of yourself, and then you say at night, was today a day I was there for my husband? Was today a day I was there for my child? You say, yeah, it was. Because it's not cheating. It's keeping yourself in sync. Because today I was focused on it. I remembered and I lived, and I was there for my husband today. I was there for my child. Say, oh, good, today I lived. So it really creates joy. But Chava's raising a very important point. The point isn't to create your values and then say, no, I'm a washout, I'm a failure. No, this is pointless. It's not a cheating list. It's a reminder. You're rereading them occasionally to remind yourself, and then later to cross-check and hopefully to say yes. And if occasionally you say no, obviously some days you might say no, then you could say, okay, well, tomorrow I really want to make a commitment to live. And then you'll be focused and you'll do it. And then you'll say, yeah, today I lived. And that feels great. So that's a deep reason for joy, meaning to look at your life and see the blessings is very, very, very good. And I highly advocate it, and I do it all the time. But to look at your life and say, what are the moral underpinnings? I feel, for me, my moral underpinnings. And then to remind myself of them and cross-check that I'm living that way, it gives a very deep feeling of my life is a meaningful life. And that gives a deep sense of joy. That's how we're wired. At least that's how Jews are wired. I know that when we really feel we lived, whatever lived you're defining as, yes, I lived today. It was a meaningful day. It was a day expressing my deepest values. Then that's a life worth living. Has anyone done this for themselves and thought along these lines and do this? I know I do this for myself. Maybe not officially at that, and I thought of those 5 things, but I know what I feel are like the values of my life. And I know when I live, I go to bed too late, I go to bed exhausted. But if I think back and say, and this I do very often, what did I do all night? Why is it this time? And then I think of what I did. I'm like, okay, thank God I lived. I lived. I feel very good. I'm too tired, but I'm okay because I lived. So it's just a way that just, I find it really, really, really very nurturing. But as Chava is saying, you have to remind yourself of your values to make sure you're living them so it actually creates deep satisfaction and not dissatisfaction with your life. Maybe just because she raised it and because it seems like besides me, no one's ever really tried this to, sometimes I can give you all the best tips in the world, but if you don't do them, you don't do them. Maybe everyone could take, I just threw out a few ideas, which don't necessarily have to be your values. Take a second to think of one value in your life. One. I think lives have more than one. So you don't have to feel like, oh my gosh, is that the most one? Because I think lives have more than one. But something that's a value in your life. Something that you would view as a value of your life. That if you did this, you lived and that's how you want to live. And when you have it in your mind, raise your real. I'm so proud of everyone. I think this is the first class. Every single person's screen is open. That's like amazing. So you could raise your real hand because I get to see everyone.
What was the question, Sarah?
Question is, because Chava's talking about it, and it seems like Chava's question is actually many people's, for people to really think, what do I mean by that? I mean, I'm sharing some of my vision of a meaningful life, of a life of my values, to take a moment to think, what are my values? You don't have to think of all 5. Just think of one thing that you would say, yes, this is part of what I would call my values, my morals, what makes my life feel meaningful and significant. Like I lived. That's how I think of it. Yes, today I lived. Because when you feel today I lived, there's a deep joy in that. There's a deep, you want to think of it as joy, but it's a joy. It's a deep inner satisfaction, a deep inner peace because you lived.
And you suggested to be something tangible, not huge, not vague, but something specific.
Something that you feel is one of your highest morals or commitments for life. Like I said, I gave a few different examples. The persons could say their deepest commitment is their relationship with their husband or their children. That could be someone's vision as I live today. Another person's could be helping others. I know when I'm there for someone else, I lived. That's my vision of a life that I'm living, a life of kindness, a life of giving. For another person, it could be their relationship with God. Today was a day I really focused on God. I was there with God in my prayers, in my study. I lived.
Mm-hmm.
I said, for me, it's one of them. Was I working on bringing Mashiach today? Do I feel I did something to make the world a better place, a place moving toward the redemption? I lived. There's nothing wrong or right. I can't imagine anyone who's gonna have a wrong value. It's like, what is it that I view as like, yes, this is to me living. This is to me a life that I lived. So Menucha has one. Rachel has one.
I have one.
Rivka has one. Chava has one. Miriam has one.
But is it something like I have like a big goal, but then a lot of times I subdivide it, and at some points I change it to different aspects. Is that
That's fine. Like again, let's say like you take the idea of I want to be there for others. To me, a life of living is a life of giving. And it could be at a certain point in your life, giving means being there for your mom, and then another point, it's being there for your friend who's in distress. And another point, it's being there for your child. They're all different aspects of a life of giving. But at different points, there's different needs that arise. Some people sometimes are more communally focused and then more individually focused, but they still have that same value, as that's the value of their life. But so you're not veering away from your value. It just expresses itself. Usually for most of us, a value, if we're saying 5, those are probably pretty broad things, but that we would each hold sacred. And honestly, it could be that if we made up a list of 5, we would each have different things. And we would have some similar things and some different things. And there's nothing, again, I can't imagine anyone has a value that's not a good value. Just we have sometimes different things we prioritize. But whatever it is, when you know what your value is and you remind yourself of it, and then you check at night, again, it doesn't be every night, but every once in a while you just check and you're like, yes, I lived. I'm tired. I lived. It gives you a deep, deep inner sense of like satisfaction with your life. Some people, like joy is something that so many people could look at other people and have no clue. Oh, she has such a great life. You have no clue she's miserable. Oh, she has such a hard life. You have no clue she's joyous. Because it's so much based on our perspective and our understanding on what's meaningful and what we have and how we handle what we don't have. Like our sages say, who is rich, who's satisfied with his lot? So other people could say, oh my gosh, she has so little. And she's like, oh no, I feel so rich. I have no needs. And someone else, oh wow, they have so much. And they feel so poor because they're stretched so thin because they have so many wants. So it's the same thing with joy. A 4th point. So all of these things are trying to be very practical tips to really take what we've been discussing these last 2 weeks and really apply them very practically. Everything here I'm saying I believe in, I generally do, and it helps. Something else is sometimes, this isn't everyone needs to do this, but some people are blocked from joy because they have unresolved issues in their past. And the unresolved issues in our past keep butting heads with our current and changing how we view our current reality because we're really very colored by our past. And again, I'm not saying everyone has that situation. This is not the first 3 things I said, everyone should be doing, everyone it's relevant to. This one is not relevant to everyone, but it's relevant to many people. I have found many, many, many people I talk to have this situation, and it really stymies them from joy because they view the present through the prism of the past, and that makes them view the present inaccurately. Like a very simple example, someone who suffered a lot as a child, and now they're an adult, and their husband or colleagues or friends do something, and they whoa, overreact. And when you point it out, they acknowledge they're overreacting, but that's what they do every single time. Because they just have a lot of unresolved pain inside of them. And that's why they're looking at the current situation, and instead of seeing it realistically and in perspective, they go back into that victim mode, being hurt mode. And therefore everything is, very, very colored and very, very emotional and very, very draining and unhappy. So again, that's not true for everyone, but it's true for many people, which is why I raised the issue. And therefore, if you know it's true for you, it's really important to deal with that and to really look at the past and really put it to peace. And I say that if it's simple, obviously it's time, it's a journey, but it's doable. It really, really, really is doable. I think of it sometimes like some people have this huge unhappy place inside of them, like a very deep unhappiness with a lot of stuff in there. And that stuff in there is all that they've dealt with in the past or didn't deal with in the past that happened to them. And the goal of a healthy person in the present is to shrink and shrink and shrink that space, to make that space smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. So it doesn't become like a rabbit hole that you find yourself under in like this deep, deep darkness. And we do it by literally going into those past memories and like really resolving them and really saying, you know, but that's, you know, what it depends on obviously on the situation, but say exactly what you say, but basically finding that words today to give comfort to yourself then, or to understand that you're not in that situation now. And that was part of God's plan. And it helped you become the person you are today. Obviously, that's a very generalized statement for this very, very, very big piece. But again, if you feel that that's hampering your joy, it's something you really need to work on. And if you don't, thank God you don't have it. Number 5, which is a little different than, it's different than what we said before about the springboards, the setbacks being springboards. Setbacks being springboards means you lost your job, but from losing the job, you developed strength you didn't know you had. You found a better job. You developed a talent. You had time to, you know, be with your family and remember them, you know, whatever. That's the setback springboard. This is not the same thing, but it's sort of relevant, sort of related, which is, and again, it's for the same reason, because we all have challenges, to look and see the silver linings you've experienced in hard situations. Which is sort of like, I mean, we all went through COVID. We're almost to 2 years of COVID. I think the masks are finally coming off in Chicago, Baruch Hashem, after almost 2 years of COVID. So that was a, you know, globally hard time. And for some people, it might have been a springboard to growth. But even if it wasn't, I think we all had silver linings in it. We all had things that were like, well, those were positives. It was a negative situation, but they were positives. I think it's important, again, it's for the same reason as that idea, but it's a slightly different concept, because you probably will have hard situations in the future, something not too hard. But if you train your brain to think, oh, I'm going to find the silver lining. I'm going to find the good. It's not going to be so great now. And God willing, this is a springboard for great future growth. But today, when I'm still dealing with the negative, I want to see the good in it as well, because I know it's there. I know if I look, I can find it. Again, it will, God willing, be a springboard for enormous growth. That was number 2. But it will also, at this moment currently, when I'm dealing with the issue, I know there's some silver linings. Why is that good to train your brain that way? Because again, it just helps you be a positive person. Is a positive person a person that never has challenges? I don't know anyone that never has challenges. I guess people that never have challenges don't talk to me. You know? Everyone I know has challenges. So you have challenges. That's life. That's normal. God wants all of us to work. God gives all of us our share or more than fair share of challenges. But if I train myself to think, there's currently good, I want to see it, I want to find it, I want to demand myself to appreciate it, it makes me a more positive and therefore able to be more joyous person in the challenge. I gave COVID as an example. So if take a second, show me with your fingers, just right now you're remembering, how many silver linings did you personally experience in COVID? Of course, we didn't want COVID, but we had it. So how many silver linings did you experience?
Can I share?
Sure, Menucha.
Okay, so since COVID, my husband started working from home. I don't have to drive him every morning to the train station and pick him up. My son is working from home and helping his wife to raise 4 children. And my daughter is working from home, able to move to Milwaukee and remain her job. So I have so many good things with COVID.
Wow. You see, in a second, Menucha came up with 3 like that.
I'm glad you reminded about COVID.
Awesome. Someone else wants to share their COVID silver linings?
Sure, I have plenty of things I'm grateful for COVID. I work from home. I can eat homemade food, warm, every day. I can exercise, whatever, right? I have time for that. I can go for a walk. So it's really, really amazing. And I can do all my work. I'm not late to meetings. So actually, I think I do a better job working from home because I don't have stress to get up, to think what to wear and all that stuff and be on time to work. So.
Wow, that was 5. I was counting. That was 5 that Chava said like this. Wow. Wow. Bella was agreeing. Bella, what's yours?
I don't wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. This is the first.
Okay, awesome.
Working from home 2 times a day, 3 times a day, working from home. And it's easier for me. I'm not.
Wait, I can't hear you now. You said you don't wake up 5 in the morning. It's easier for you. You're on mute. Bella, I think you put yourself on mute. Check your computer. I think you're on mute. I don't hear you.
Yeah, I can't
Okay,
hear
now
you.
I hear you.
Yeah. 3 hours I was losing. I am still going twice in a week, but it's just twice in a week. It's okay. And yeah, just I'm waking up.
Now again, you froze. Now you froze. So Bella does not have to wake up at 5 in the morning, 3 out of 5 work days. She does not have to waste 3 hours in commute.
3:30, 4 o'clock, I'm done.
And she ends work much earlier.
Yeah.
We won't tell anyone. This is not being sent to her boss.
Yes. Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. Look how easy. Now, when we remind ourselves of that, Nucha said she's glad we thought about this to remind ourselves. When we remind ourselves like that, the idea is, again, to train our mind to look positively at our challenges. Because I think we would all say COVID is a challenge, but yet, Menucha, no problem, and Chava, no problem, Bella, no problem.
For me, it was not at all.
No, Bella said there was no challenge in COVID.
Actually,
Well, I was very, very happy to find out, was it today or yesterday, that Israel took off that requirement to be vaccinated to enter the country. That gave me great joy. I was very, very happy for that. I'm still waiting for Canada, but so there's some hampering of our lives. But yes, I can also list many, many, many things. And when we remind ourselves of this, the idea is paying it forward, that when we're in another situation, our brain says, wait, look for the silver linings. No, it was only COVID. No, that's not true. Every situation has silver linings. That doesn't mean it's not a challenge. It's a challenge. But every situation has silver linings. So yes, ultimately, the setback is a springboard. But even when you're in the situation, we can find the silver linings, and therefore we develop a positive perspective on life. So we want to be joyous, and to be joyous, it's really important to be positive. A positive person has a much easier time being a joyous person. A negative person has a pretty hard time being a joyous person. Okay. The next thing was my point number 6 is focusing on the present. Not viewing the present through the prism of the past, especially in relationships with people close to us. We can hold on to previous mistakes and disappointments, and some people very often engage with people that the past is the present, meaning their past hurts, their past disappointments, and they just look at the person. That's what they expect. That's their expectation. That's the energy they're giving out. They're looking at the person through the prism of the past, through the prism of judgment. some things which aren't even always reflecting reality, even the past reality. And Hashem, God, every moment he's creating everything anew. And again, I'm not saying if you have a great relationship, you should forget the past, because that's part of your deep love for your child, your spouse, your friend. But if it's a different type of situation where there were disappointments and pains in the past, if you want the present to be a good relationship, you have to like just give it a fresh start. Try again. Have hope. Have expectations of positive, of good, instead of like clinging to all the past X number of years of negative. Because it makes it very, very hard to be joyous and positive and happy in your relationships when the past is so real. The seventh point is another, just trying to be very practical tip to being a joyous, positive person, is surround yourself with positive, happy people. We're very affected by our environment. We're very affected by people. Our sages say that a neighbor can be more influential than a friend, because when we're with positive people, it helps us be positive. And when we're with negative people or cynical people, people that make us feel inadequate, people that make us feel insecure, people that drain our energies, people that bring out the worst in us, we feel bad. We feel bad after, if not also during. And it's really hard to be a positive person when you're with a lot of people that are very negative. Now, of course, sometimes you have no choice, and then you have to create the strategies to deal with people that are in your life that are not leaving your life and that are not positive people. But if you have a choice, if it's a type of relationship that you could have or not have, and if it's with a negative person, it's good to like sort of distance yourself. And if it's a person you can't distance with yourself, it's good to create your own protective strategies so you don't get pulled down by the other person's negativity. My eighth idea, which I mentioned before as one of the morals, and I believe in this so strongly, is we create joy by giving joy to others. I always see this in my life. I remember my aunt passed away very, very suddenly. She had an aneurysm in her lungs, passed away like in 3 hours, very unexpectedly. But it's one of my last real encounters with her. I was very close to my aunt. One of my last real encounters, I was talking to her before Purim, a few weeks before, and she was telling me that she doesn't enjoy Purim. Whatever, at this point in her life, she didn't enjoy Purim. It's all about getting shalachmanis and giving shalachmanis. It was not her thing. And I said, yeah, I'm here, little young niece talking to her. And I said, well, if you take the Purim time and you focus on giving to others, you'll probably enjoy Purim. Okay, the conversation moved on. I mean, it wasn't like, it wasn't like a deep, long conversation about it. We moved on. Probably a week or two before Purim. And on Purim, she sent me a picture of herself. I never asked her the details of the picture. It looked like she was in a nursing home or a senior center. And I could see she was there giving joy to someone else. She said it really, really worked. That was very deep in my heart. It was one of my last memories with her before she suddenly passed away. So it really works. I think any other way to say it. It really works. Giving joy to others is such a direct way to have joy. I think of things like, imagine a world where that's how we live, where if someone's down, they go out and give joy to others. Imagine a world where we educate our children. Oh, you're upset. Go make someone else happy. Imagine such a world. It's the best education, but we think to say it to our kids. We think to say to ourselves, oh, I'm upset. Go make someone else happy. It's a very, very, very powerful way to create joy in ourselves. We could take a moment now. I know it's a little bit late, but just to think of a doable situation in your life where if you were down, you could do that and give joy to someone else. A doable situation. Again, you don't have to wait till you're down to give joy to someone else. You should always be focused on that. But I'm saying just to have like something doesn't require a lot of things you can't do. Just a simple thing like phone call to someone who would appreciate it. You know, a doable situation of something you can do that you know is meaningful to someone else. If anyone would like to share, because it's nice to think of simple examples to help us think of ways to do doable situations of giving joy to others. So my life is a little different than some of yours because I still have young children. But I myself, it's always there. I can always nurture a child. I can always nurture any of my other children that are not in the house also. And by reaching out to them and being there for them. And a lot of times what people just need is just empathy or praise or I'm really proud of you. Sometimes those are like such nurturing statements we could say. I'm saying like, I'm thinking sort of to like children or, you know, in our life, our children. And it's a real way to help someone else, to help someone very close to you. Similarly to husbands. You know, husbands are other people. And they're also people that you can give to. And when you're consciously giving to the person as a way of being there for someone else, it really can give you the sense of joy that you help someone else. Happens to be an important person in your life, your husband. Saying, I think the phone gives us so many abilities to reach so many people. Think of someone who really would appreciate a call and you reach out to them and you have time for them. You know, it's such a wonderful vehicle. We can use a phone for many bad things also, many wrong things, but we can also do so much good with it. Anyone else? Simple examples they can think of how to give joy, Rachel?
Last week, my grandchildren were off school. They had a day off. So it's such a joy for them to get together at my house from two different families. Here they can get together. They get together sometimes, not here, not in my house, but in my house, they also like being together. So
Or what's better than being by Bubby? That's nice. That's a giving joy and getting joy. What's a better joy for a grandmother than nurturing her grandchildren? So that's a sure direct road to joy.
This is also about COVID. When you were talking about COVID, for this last 2 summers, they spend more time here in my backyard because
everything else was shut down.
Camps don't work and all this stuff.
That's so nice. So you did Bubby Camp.
Yeah, to some extent.
That's very nice. And then COVID reminded us of Zoom and the possibilities of connecting that way. I know my family did a few, not like a regular basis because the time zones are a little different. I have my sons in Israel, but we did a few like just family. I remember when it was really COVID and we're all shut down, we just schmoozed, you know, it was just, we all, you know, figured out a time and we all got on and it was such joy. Everyone was together. It was virtual, but everyone felt very together. And since then we've kept it up, not every birthday of everyone, but every once in a while on a birthday, we try to do it. And it's special. It's very special. Just and definitely for a mother to give to her children, a grandmother to give to her grandchildren. Those are such direct roads to give and receive joy. And a very, very good example. Anyone else has some simple thing, just a simple idea, nothing too big, just something simple that helps, that you could think of as a way you can give someone else joy?
It's always to give a phone call to an elderly person. When I call my parents' friends who are still alive, they're just so happy. They're just so happy to hear from me. I can feel it.
I agree with you. I call my two babysitters. We had two long-term babysitters and many very short-lived ones. But I had one babysitter that was with us for like about 13 years. Another babysitter with us for less than that, I'd say probably about 7. And yes, I still keep up with them. And it's definitely a sense, especially for one of them, like, I'm like, what does she have in her life now? You know, so lonely, so alone, nothing happening. And it's just thinking about your own aches and pains and loneliness and boredom. And it's such a big thing to call someone like that. Yes, that is definitely a person that you just know you're doing something really good when you pick up that phone. Yes, and I'm sure we all know people like that. You know, so that's definitely a very doable thing, and definitely something that you know you made someone else feel good. Okay. I'm sorry I'm pushing a little bit late, but I really want, like I said, today is the 3rd day of this, so we're gonna conclude on this today. I'll say this sort of briefly, but sometimes, again, trying to train ourselves, we're trying to train ourselves to be positive people, is to reflect on times when you forced yourself, you weren't really feeling it, but you forced yourself to be positive, you forced yourself to think positive, or to speak positive, or to do positive, and then comparing that to a time when you allowed yourself to just be negative. And when you look back, like, how do you reflect on those situations, when you really disciplined yourself to make a positive choice, or when you just indulged in the negativity of the moment? And when you think about that, it can really help you commit to a disciplined positivity. You know, if you really think of a time when you just allowed yourself to be in a bad mood, allowed yourself to have a pity party, allowed yourself to sulk, as well as the time when you forced yourself, you disciplined yourself to make a positive choice. And we reflect back afterwards, like, so what did you gain, lose in each situation? What did you feel from each situation? It's sometimes just a very clear way to decide you want to be a positive person, to commit to positivity. And the last thing I wanted to mention, this is an idea the Lubavitcher Rebbe discusses in several places. I've seen this in several times, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and I don't have that much time, but I'm going to try to sort of synthesize this. Well, actually, the truth is there was another, well, the Lubavitcher Rebbe had a whole concept in terms of joy as the catalyst to bring Mashiach. That the Rebbe says that there's so many different things we've tried to do to bring Mashiach. And one thing we haven't tried, because seemingly it's too difficult, because exile has been pretty rough on us, is to have joy. And joy, the pure joy that Mashiach's coming. And joy in the coming of Mashiach as a means to bring Mashiach, as a means to live a very joyous life, which is a longer topic. And then something else from the Rebbe, which is a little bit of maybe a deeper perspective, but, and the Rebbe again says this in many different ways, bring out the same point. If we really value being a Jew, if we really value what we accomplish when we serve God, if we think about it, we should have joy. That should be the direct road to joy. And the Rebbe again says this so many different times in so many different ways. If we get it, if we understand what it means when we do a mitzvah, if we understand what's happening when we learn Torah, if we get that we and God are one, the infinity of God and my own little finite self, absolutely one, because right now I'm serving him, that should be the road to joy. That should be the straightest road to joy. That should be the constant road to joy. Because no matter whatever else is going on in your life, you always can make a choice to serve God. Everything else will be taken away from you, but you can always make a choice to serve God. And when you think about that, and you really think about it, every time you do a mitzvah, every time you serve God, you should feel joyous. And if you're not feeling joyous, you have to ask yourself, why not? Well, I'm just not thinking about it. Okay, well, let me think. Let me appreciate what's going on. Let me understand what I'm accomplishing. And that's why actually it says in the Torah that if you serve God without joy, it's like you didn't serve God. What does that mean? If I lit Shabbos candles without joy, I didn't light Shabbos candles. If I prayed without joy, I didn't pray. If I gave charity without joy, I didn't give charity. What does it mean? Well, what it means is, yeah, you did all those actions, but the main heart of it is missing. Because if you light Shabbos candles with joy, or you give charity with joy, or you pray with joy, what the message you're giving God is, this is valuable. This is special. I appreciate this opportunity to be one with you. So if you value it and you know it's special and you know it's an amazing thing that you and God could be one, you feel the joy when you do these things. Obviously, sometimes you have to stop and think and remind yourself because you're busy and maybe you're doing it on automatic pilot because you've done it many times before. So you need to put in little times to think about it. But the Rebbe says that should be your natural feeling. Every time you serve God, you should feel joy. And when you feel God, feel joy when you're serving God, you're giving God such a message. I value this. I appreciate this. This is special. This is significant. This is the most beautiful gift I possess. This is a treasure I possess. And if you think about it and you really like, I believe in God and I'm doing it. I don't feel joy. I just do it because he commanded it and I believe in him. Never says the main thing's missing. You have to go deeper in yourself to appreciate the gift that you and God can be one. And the more a person appreciates that gift that I and God can be one, the more your service is infused with joy, and the more your life is infused with joy. This is a very, very powerful point that we don't have too much time to think about, but is really a very, very strong, strong message about living a life of joy no matter what's going on. Because serving God is always, always, always in our hands. So we are going to end at this point. I did remember to bring the book, so we're going to do a law of Shabbos. So we were talking here about the idea of squeezing. And we discussed how you're allowed to squeeze. You're not allowed to squeeze grapes or olives ever, but everything else you're allowed to squeeze on fruit, on foods, on solids, not on liquids. We said like you could squeeze a lemon on a salad. If you want lemon in your tea, you can't squeeze it into the water, but you could squeeze it on the sugar and then put the sugar in the water. So we discussed that. So another point within this squeezing issue, there's so many laws of Sabbath, is as we're squeezing, we still have to remember the laws of selection, which I know we mentioned recently. I remember sharing with you was like, to me, the hardest part of keeping Shabbos. It's my challenge, and I kept Shabbos my whole life, and I try to do it right, but it's always hard to stay focused on not selecting. And there's 3 rules of selecting. You have to take the good from the bad. You have to do it only with your hand, not with a tool. And this is always the hardest one, there has to be immediate use. So if you have a lemon that you're squeezing onto a salad, and so that's in a sense selecting. You're selecting the good from the bad, the juice from the lemon. You're squeezing with your hand. So you got you got with your hand, but it has to be some immediate use. Because if you squeeze a lemon on the salad and then an hour later eat your salad, or half an hour later eat your salad, well, that wasn't immediate use. So that's a problem because you're selecting. So if you would do that, you would either want to do it right before you serve it, or you would want to eat some of it to do something that made it immediate benefit from the squeezing. You wouldn't want to squeeze and then a while later use the food, because then you selected the juice from the fruit or from the vegetable, but you didn't have the component of the immediate. Again, you have the component of good from bad. You have the component of your hand, but you wouldn't have the component of immediate use. Interesting thought. Anyone have anything else they want to ask or raise on terms of the laws of Shabbos? Now, sometimes people have their own questions on it.
I probably know that it's not a good idea, but I see sometimes people putting dirty dishes in a large container filled with water after dinner. So
Are
the next
they, is it Friday night or Shabbos day?
could be either.
Well,
It
if it's,
makes
if
a
they, you're saying in advance, they created water and like soap before Shabbos, that's permissible. They
yeah.
did it before Shabbos, meaning if before Shabbos, we discussed recently, maybe 2 weeks ago, I don't remember if it was last week or 2 weeks ago, that you don't want to use regular soap on Shabbos because it creates bubbles, and that's considered a fashion of building. But you're allowed to build before Shabbos. So if before Shabbos, and also we discussed you can't use hot water on Shabbos, but you can use hot water before Shabbos. So some people before, now it doesn't work for me because I ate way too late, it wouldn't help me. But for people who eat pretty close to Shabbos, before Shabbos, they take a dishpan and they fill it with hot water and soap. And then ideally to make this work, you need to cover it. And then after the meal, they scrape the plates, they put them in there. There's no problem because before Shabbos, they built the soap bubbles. Before Shabbos, they made the water hot. Now they're just putting it there and then they're gonna let it sit to, you know, get off the grease, the residue, and then they're gonna take it out and rinse it off with their cold water. That's totally fine.
It's not considered that they prepare it to be washed after Shabbos.
That's why I asked you if it was Friday night or Shabbos day. If they're putting those dishes in there and then they don't wash them, that's a problem.
Oh.
But they could be putting those dishes in, because I know I've also seen people do that. If you put your dishes in the soap water and then you wash your dishes on Shabbos with your cold water, it's totally fine. It just helped you do it. So that's why I asked Friday night or Shabbos day, because if you're doing it Friday night, the assumption is you're going to wash your dishes for the next meal, but you're making it easier for yourself. It's fine. After your lunch meal, you wouldn't be allowed to do that because that would then, of course, why would you do that anyway? I mean, your water's not going to be hot, but maybe just have to create the soap water. You wouldn't be allowed to do it after your lunch meal because that would be considered preparing for after Shabbos washing your dishes. And I don't really see a point then anyway, because after Shabbos, you could just use hot water and soap. I mean, what do you need to do that anyway for? But if they're doing it Friday night and then after that, they're going to wash them for their Shabbos day, that's fine.
I see it's done for both meals.
So you can't do it after your Shabbos lunch meal unless you're going to use these meals for your third Shabbos Shalosh Shudas, like it's in the summer and you're going to have a Shalosh Shudas and you're going to use these dishes. If you're not planning on washing the dishes on Shabbos day, no, 100% to use them on Shabbos day, you're 100% not allowed to do it. But if you're doing it Friday night because you're going to reuse the dishes and you want to make it easier for you to wash them, it's 100% allowed.
But if you don't wash them,
Then
that's
it's not allowed. Yeah, then it's 100% not allowed. 100% not allowed. Like many other things that we could do to prepare for after Shabbos and are not allowed. Now, again, sometimes there's a sense of the immediate dissatisfaction. Like let's say it's Shalosh Shudas. Okay, it's your third meal of the day. Are you allowed to clean the table? I mean, you're not eating again from the table. Well, the answer would be if you're going to use the table, not for a meal, but for another purpose, and it would be disturbing to you, a dirty table, then you're allowed to. Doesn't mean you're allowed to wash the dishes, but you can remove everything from the table. You can brush away the crumbs from the table. You could sweep the floor. If you want to sit in a clean room and it disturbs you, a dirty room, even though you're not going to be using the table for eating, but you're going to use a table later on Shabbos to sit by, to study by, you're allowed to. If you're not going to use a table again, you're not going to be in this room again. You had your lunch or your Shalosh Shudas and you're leaving your house to go somewhere else for the afternoon, then you're not allowed to, because then it's preparing for after Shabbos. Like I know for myself, I think I mentioned, I don't like to, my son, I have it built into his psyche. When I walk into his room in the morning, I'm supposed to clean up all his toys that he made a mess of. That's not a good practice anyway, but whatever. Somehow I end up doing it. And I don't like cleaning his toy Shabbos morning because I feel it's borer, but a lot of times he's very insistent. So again, everything's with my hand. That's no problem. And I'm always careful. Just take the good from the bad. No, which isn't such a big deal. But I always ask myself, what's my immediate use? I said my immediate use is a satisfaction that his room is clean. So I have to like stop and admire and feel good that the room is clean. And now he has a clean room to mess up again for the rest of the Shabbos day. and then it's allowed. But if I don't have those moments of like enjoying the clean room that I created, I had no immediate use. So what did I do it for? For after Shabbat, you're not allowed to do that. So you always have to, like, you know, ask yourself that question. Can it help me? What I'm doing now, do I have a benefit from it on Shabbos? I'm allowed to do it. If the only benefit is after Shabbos, I'm not allowed to do it.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Any other questions on Shabbos? Because there's always, Shabbos is always something we always
Yes.
learn.
So this question that we just discussed, I mean, if the table is in the same room, right? And it just doesn't look nice to see all the dirty dishes.
Then you're
on the
totally
table.
allowed to remove everything off. If the table's in the room as your couch, Chava's
Yeah.
broadening the question. She's not going to be sitting by her table. She's going to be sitting on her couch. But it disturbs her to see a dirty table. She's totally allowed to remove everything, bring it into the kitchen. She's totally allowed to clean off the crumbs. She's totally allowed to sweep the floor because she's going to stay in that room and it's going to disturb her. But if she's not staying in that room because she's going out to a friend, she's going to her room to take a nap till the end of Shabbos. So she's not going to be in that room and being disturbed by the mess, then she's not allowed to. But if you're in that room, even if you're not by the table and it disturbs you, again, if it doesn't bother you, you're not allowed to clean it. But if it didn't bother you, probably wouldn't clean it. But if it bothers you, you are allowed to clean it just for the sake of having. Shabbos is supposed to be a day of serenity, a day of tranquility, a day of joy. So if it disturbs you and it disturbs your tranquility and serenity and positive Shabbos energy, you are allowed to clean it in a manner permissible on Shabbos to maintain your Shabbos mood. Anyone else? Any other questions?
Yes. So if dirty pots disturb me, can I wash it? And I'm not going to use it like next day. Can I still wash it?
No.
But if
A
I'm
dirty empty pot is actually muksa, meaning it's something you're not supposed to touch. You put it somewhere you're not supposed to even move it.
But if it disturbs me, just
So you have to put it in a place you're not going to see it. You can hide it in a cabinet. You can hide it in a dishwasher that you're just sticking it, not stacking it. You cannot stack in a dishwasher. So after Shabbos, you just turn your dishwasher, but you could just put your stuff in the dishwasher, you know, just using it as a storage cabinet so you don't see it.
Can I put dirty plates in the dishwasher?
Yes, you cannot stack them in the dishwasher. In other words, you can't put them in the dishwasher that after Shabbos you could turn on the dishwasher because that would be preparing for after Shabbos. You could take the stack of them and just put them in the dishwasher. So you're still going to have to stack them to be used in the dishwasher, but it's just a way of like getting rid of them. You know, it's just a storage. It's just sticking them in so you don't see them. But a dirty pot is different, meaning a plate is not muksa. A plate has a permissible use on Shabbos. If a pot has food in it, it has a permissible use. It's storing food. And then you're not going to leave it on your counter. You're going to put it in your fridge. But if the pot was empty, you had rice in it. You ate it Friday night. You did a great job. All the rice is gone. When you finish scooping out that rice, right away, if you want to put that pot somewhere, you can't like put it down and then deal with it. You have to literally, as you scoop out the last scoop, keep your hand still on it and move it somewhere. Because it's literally considered muksa. Because why is it muksa? Muksa means something that has no function on Shabbos. Once it's Shabbos, you can't cook. So an empty pot has no designated function.
Okay, can I put water and soap and leave it?
No. Because that's preparing for after Shabbos. That's just what Rachel said. It's a different version of what Rachel said. You cannot soak a pot on Shabbos, 100% not.
It will get dry and it's hard to wash.
Right. So what you do is after Shabbos, you soak it, and you can soak it for many hours after Shabbos, so it will all soften up. Many years of experience. It always works. You can leave it overnight in the water. You could put it on a little flame to help if it was really stuck on. All the tips we know, but you cannot prepare it on Shabbos because you're not allowed to prepare on Shabbos for after Shabbos. It would be just like if you washed your dishes after your lunch meal to have clean dishes after Shabbos. You're not using them right after Shabbos. You're using them in a week. It doesn't make a difference. It's preparing. There's even a concept to show you how far this goes. that on Shabbos, you cannot roll the Torah to the next portion that you're going to be reading next week. You're like, oh my gosh, this is a Torah. And what in the world is forbidden about rolling a Torah? A lot of times in synagogue, they roll the Torah. Yeah, they roll the Torah to find the portion they need that day. It's 100% permissible, godly service. But to roll the Torah so it should be ready for next week, and it's for Shabbos, it's not for a weekday, it's for Shabbos. But it's for next Shabbos, forbidden. Which shows you how carefully we cannot prepare, even, nothing to do with a weekday, for next Shabbos. I'm not allowed to prepare on this Shabbos. For a holy thing like I'm reading a Torah scroll in synagogue, for the benefit of the community, it should be in the right place. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I'm not allowed to do it on Shabbos. Because that's considered preparing for next Shabbos. I mean, it is preparing for next Shabbos, and I'm not allowed to prepare for after Shabbos on Shabbos. Any other questions on this? Shabbos is complicated. There's lots of laws. I every day try to learn laws of Shabbos. And I'm saying I've been doing it my whole life, but that's fine. I remind myself, I never realized, I forgot. Plenty of reasons I need to relearn laws every single day. There's so many laws of Shabbos. And it's a very special gift between us and God. And I happen to love Shabbos. It's my best day of the week. You know, so I view it as something that I enjoy and I appreciate. At the same time, I want to make sure I'm keeping it right. So I need to learn the laws. Thank you so much for joining. Have a wonderful, joyous, positive, focused week. Take advantage. We got 40 days left and we want to make them count.
Thank you.